This is a 5-minute introduction to Grey Man, written by Lulu Raczka, directed by Robyn Winfield-Smith, and produced by Rebekah Harvey. Grey Man was written in 2016 as a 30-minute one-woman stage play and is a haunting story of two sisters, the younger of whom tells us about her childhood growing up with an older sister who told horror stories about a grey man to make sense of and cope with her own mental illness. In this digital production of Grey Man, the lead character Maya is played by two different women, younger Maya and older Maya. This dual casting raises questions about the identity of the storytelling protagonist, highlights how our mental outlook can influence the events of our lives, and explores the power of storytelling to haunt us or heal us. Younger Maya, played by Kate O'Flynn, is in her early 30s, slim and petite with dark brown hair pulled away from her clear, pale skin, fastened in a topknot with a few loose strands which fall around her face. She wears small gold hoop earrings, has high cheekbones, a thin mouth, and is dressed casually in lilac hoodie, stone-washed denims, and white trainers. Younger Maya seems confident and streetwise. She's more energetic and gossipier in her storytelling compared to more sombre and sinister older Maya. This version of the character is in her 50s, white, with shoulder-length straight auburn hair in a side parting tied in a low ponytail. Her pale, watery eyes are wide and intense. Older Maya is played by Kristin Hutchinson, is tall and of medium build. She's barefoot and dressed casually in a loose-fitting green linen crumpled shirt rolled up at the sleeves over grey chinos. She seems more lonely, jaded and wary compared to the younger version of herself. Just as the character of Maya is played by two actors, the simple set is two versions of the same room, which sit side by side. As each character shares the stories, the camera flicks from one room to the other, following the narrator. When both characters speak at the same time, we see both rooms side by side in a split screen. Older Maya's sepia-coloured room is on the right of the screen, dirty, messy, more lived in. It has dark wood floorboards and grimy plaster walls covered in damp stains. The right-hand wall has a sash window concealed by tattered sheets of peeling old newspaper. Light seeps through the tears, casting shadows across the gloomy room. A soiled net curtain hangs from one corner above the window, having fallen from its rail. On the back wall stands a brick fireplace, thick with soot, surrounded by a traditional rectangular chimney breast, creating a little alcove on either side. A few pillar candles stand in the left corner of the fireplace next to a photograph in a silver frame. Against the left wall, tucked into the alcove, a single stripped mattress lies on the floor with a pillow and an old, scruffy-looking teddy bear. Maya's older sister used to be on the other side of this wall. The only furniture is an upturned wooden crate which stands to the right of the fireplace and is used as a side table for the battered-looking wood-framed armchair in front of it. Another very small side table stands at the foot of the bed, and there is some rubbish and debris scattered across the floor. The room is dim, apart from the orange glow from a fringe standing lamp in the alcove in the right corner of the room and a small table lamp on a little pile of books next to the mattress in the left alcove. Several electric heaters in the corners of the room emit a red, eerie glow across the dingy room. The camera becomes the fourth wall, and both Mayas address the stories directly to us, but at times they seem to lose themselves within the stories, reliving the events they describe. At other times, they recall the memory of their sister, talk to her on the other side of the wall, or sense a presence in the room. Whereas older Maya appears in the decayed flat where she grew up, younger Maya seems to have returned to the freshly plastered, almost empty flat where she lived with her troubled sister. The room is brighter, cleaner, with freshly painted white walls. In this version of the room, the wall on the right with the window has a pristine net curtain hung from a curtain pole that drapes over the clear panes of glass. On the back wall, the fireplace is spotless. A clock hangs on the wall on the left, adjacent to Maya's sister's room. It is empty, apart from a pale grey rectangular rug in front of the fireplace that lies over the same dark but cleaner brown floorboards, and a sky blue patterned sleeping bag that runs from the left-hand alcove along the wall next to Maya's sister to mirror the mattress in older Maya's room. The teddy bear here is newer and younger. A small metal desk lamp by the makeshift bed casts shadows across the room. The light is blue, cold and sterile. When we first meet younger and older Maya, they both stand in the centre of their dark room, talking to the camera. White letters on a black screen read, Liminal Stage Productions presents Grey Man, a digital R&D commission for the space, written by Lulu Ronchka, directed by Robyn Winfield-Smith, produced by Rebekah Harvey, starring Cato Flynn and Kristin Hutchinson. Younger Maya stands in the middle of the dimly lit empty room, a large shadow behind her.
So a woman's just been shopping.
Older Maya.
Shopping in a big centre somewhere.
It's late and the centre's going to close.
So she's running down to her car.
In the car park, she sees from far away that there's a man standing next to her car.
She doesn't know who the man is, and so she slows down.
He sees her and he goes, "Hey, sorry."
Is this your car?
And she kind of nods, not really wanting to speak, and he says, sorry, I don't mean to freak you out.
But half an hour ago I saw someone break in and I scared them off, so I waited to make sure they didn't take anything.
And now
she can see that the window on his side is broken. And the story
well, it
seems to make sense, right?
So she says, thank you.
Thank you, thanks so much.
He asks if she's going to call the police.
She tells him that she will in the morning.
He gives her some details so she can contact him.
You know, for the police.
All sorted. So she starts getting into the car and then, wait, he says. See, I've been waiting with your car and now I'm going to miss my train because of it. And she's like, well, I'm sorry, thank you for waiting. Can you give me a lift to the station? I'm sorry, but I'm going to miss my train now. It's the last one. I'm really sorry, but there's not another one till morning. Look, can't you take a taxi there? It will take 10 minutes, please. I'm only going to miss it because of your...
And she stops him. She takes out her purse. She hands him £40 in cash and goes, thank you for waiting. Here's money for a cab or for the next train. I'm not giving you a lift because I'm freaked out and I just want to go home. And she gets into her car and drives off. Gone.
Young Maya holds a torch.
She takes the car to the mechanic the next day to fix the window. When she picks it up, the mechanic asks if she's still going to the police.
She's calmed down now. Says, why bother?
Nothing was stolen, why go through the stress?
No, nothing was stolen.
Says the mechanic.
Holds the torch under her chin.
But I did find a knife and a length of rope taped under the broken window.
Darkness. Lights brighten. Smiles.
I heard that the other day. Good, isn't it?
Love scary stories.
Well, no, they freak me out, get me real scared, but still.
I used to hear them all from my sister. She'd tell them to her friends in her room and I'd hear them all through the wall. They wouldn't be those kind of stories, though.
No, when we was kids, they'd all be about Grey Man.
You know Grey Man?
You know, he lives round here. He's grey.
As in his skin's actually grey?
You must have seen him.
Come on. OK,
Well,
he's grey, that's really all you need to know.
And he's always round this area, around the shops, on the high street, all over.
We always used to see him on our way home from school.
Really made you sprint home.
One time my sister's friend told this story about him.
Older Maya sits in the chair.
She's home, babysitting. Her little brother's in bed and she sat watching TV.
So a flat, ground floor, and from the window in the living room you can see out onto the street.
And the window is behind the TV.
So she's watching TV and suddenly there's Grey Man.
The lights dim.
Staring right back at her.
Older Maya stands.
Out on the street, in front of the flat.
She freaks,
But she tries to ignore him. But there he was.
just staring at her.
She stares back.
And finally she's like, fuck this.
Got up to close the curtains.
And he was gone.
And she realised he was behind her the whole time. It was just his reflection in the window.
I mean, yeah, of course I know that didn't happen. I know, I've heard that same story about everyone from everywhere. It happened to my cousin's boyfriend's sister's hairdresser. I swear. And come on, what happened then? My sister and all her friends are like, OK, so what happened next? Grey man's in your house, what did you do?
And she was like, well, he just left, didn't he?
Everyone just laughed.
See, really, it was my sister who could tell the stories. Well, that's why they all came over, to lie on her bed and have her tell them about Grey Man.
But she had this whole thing with Grey Man, about that woman. When they brought up Grey Man, she'd say, you know why he's grey? Don't you know why he's grey? That woman. She turned him grey. That woman. No one knew where she came from. But wherever she was, she had this little army of grey. See, she'd take people and she'd turn them grey. Any people, man, woman, old, young. One time...
Ages ago.
Before we were born.
She wanted Grey Man.
I mean, he wasn't great then, but she wanted him.
He just moved to England and was looking for work. She hired him to paint her house, and he jumped at the chance.
And he managed to scrape together and buy all the equipment, and he turned up at her house.
She gave him 15 tins of grey paint and told him she wanted the whole house grey.
And I mean, the house didn't need a lick of paint. The house looks newly painted, all white and gleaming.
But she wanted grey.
Every wall,
every door,
every windowsill.
Grey.
So he started.
Opened the paint.
He dips in the brush.
Brings the brush to the wall.
And the minute he does, he loses his breath.
Gone.
Can't breathe.
And he takes the brush away.
And he can breathe again.
He doesn't understand.
But he needs to get the work done.
So he carries on painting.
Stopping and catching his breath whenever he needed.
At the end of the first day, he goes right to bed when he gets home.
And the next day.
And the next day.
And on the fourth day, woke up, and on his walk to work, whenever he let out a breath, it would come out in front of him.
He could see it.
Grey.
His breath.
It had gone grey. At first he thought he was seeing things.
So he carried on painting.
But slowly, it all turned grey.
All his insides.
He could feel them.
Out into his skin.
His eyes.
His hair.
He'd wash and scrub, but there he was.
Grey.
So that by the time he finished the house...
He was hers.
And the house, the second he finished it, went right back to before he turned up. White and shiny.
Her friends found this funny. Grey breath, grey breath.
But she didn't. She was serious. And I believed her too. Listening through the walls. My flat has 2 bedrooms, one for Mum and Dad and one for her and me. And we shared my room for years until one day when she was almost a teenager, I guess. Up she gets and moves into the cupboard.
See, we had this big cupboard in our flat. This long, thin cupboard room. We used to keep cleaning supplies in there.
And one day, she moves it all out. She moves herself in. And she had all the stuff. Fairy lights, posters. She'd been saving it all. Planning. And then I heard her tell her friends why.
Older Maya gazes out the window.
It was the woman, she said. That woman. That woman. The one who turned grey man. She wanted my sister too. And one day, she sees my sister walking home from school.
And she sends out a grey man to get her.
And grey man goes and he follows her. And every day he follows her into a corner shop where she buys a packet of sweets. And every day her and her friends laugh at him, and every day he follows them in there. And then one day, he gets there before her and he picks up a packet of sweets and he breathes into it. And my sister, she buys them and she eats them. And over the next few days, she could feel it.
The grey.
And at first she thinks she's seen things.
Her hand smudging grey in her notebooks in school.
And she'd walk home and she'd see her grey breath out in front of her, and she knew she had to stop it. And my sister, she's clever. She thought, maybe if I can pretend I'm dead, that I'm not worth it, maybe I can stop it. But how's she going to do that? How's she going to pretend that she's dead? And one time, she's cleaning the house, which was pointless because she's leaving her grey marks everywhere. But one time, she's cleaning the flat and she sees the closet in front of her, full of cleaning supplies. And she thinks, this isn't like a closet. This is a coffin. And she waits until we're all out one day. And she moves herself into the little coffin room to trick the woman. And slowly, her breast stops being grey. And her fingers stop spreading it. But she has to stay in her coffin for a good part of each day, otherwise it comes back. And sometimes if it's late, she can feel it again, all the grey. So she sprints home, jumps into bed again, and it's gone.
Her friends, they obviously didn't believe her. I mean, how could you? But you could hear it. They were freaked out.
But anyway, that's why she said she moved.
Young Maya rolls out her sleeping bag.
And I was all by myself in the big room with the bunk bed.
Older Maya sits on the mattress, holds the teddy.
Every night I change. Top or bottom, top or bottom, top or bottom. You think I'd be happy?
They both sit on the beds.
All that space.
But I did miss her.
And I was scared. I'd never been by myself before. And hearing all those stories through the wall.
Her scary stories.
That I couldn't really not listen to because the walls were so thin.
And for her it was easy.
I swear she got scared too.
I know her.
We're sisters.
I know what she's like.
That's why she liked all the stories so much, because they scared her.
But the room made it easy.
Because for her, the walls were so close, there was nowhere to hide for anything bad.
But for me, the walls were so far away.
There were so many places for things to hide.
I used to be so jealous of her. So safe in there.
This was all before the lockup started. I don't know what to call it. There was a point when she was older when she just kind of stopped leaving it.
The room.
And her friends stopped too. It happened slowly, not like all of a sudden she just wouldn't leave, just that...
Slowly.
She just stopped going out, really.
She'd still leave to eat.
But not much else.
They look at the wall next to them.
She's still in there now.
They stand.
When all this was going on, something happened with Grey Man. I was a teenager at this point, and my friend, she saw Grey Man when she was in a shop with her boyfriend, and they tried to take a picture of him, and he lost it. You kids! You people! And he told them that he had
Lead poisoning!
That's why he was grey. And she told me all about it, and it went round the school, and then everyone thought they were going to get lead poisoning off him or something, and they still pointed, and they still all laughed, and then whenever you saw him, you ran. But for me, I wasn't scared anymore, because for me, the lead poisoning made him like a person, not like a, you know, there was no more grey breath. And I remember I got home after finding out about it, and I tried to get in her coffin room, which had become like her own fucking coffin, and I banged on the door, and I heard nothing. So I went in, and the bed blocked the way, so I squeezed in, and I told her that Grey Man had lead poisoning, and she said...
Who's Grey Man?
And I said, you know Grey Man. You remember Grey Man. Remember all the times that he followed you down back from school? And I knew the story sounded stupid now, and I knew that she hadn't told them to my face, and I knew I couldn't explain, but I carried on, and she said...
Don't know what you're talking about.
And I said, remember, you said he had grey breath? And she said that that didn't even make sense. And then I went out of her room, and I went back into my bunk bedroom, and I tried to hear her breathe through the wall.
From a coffin or whatever.
Tried to hear her breathe. Breathe her grey breath.
Both Mayas. Young Maya gazes at the wall. Older Maya huddles herself in the armchair. Lights slowly fade. Young Maya lies face down on the rug facing us. She's moved the desk lamp next to her and flicks it on. The gentle light throws eerie shadows across the room.
You'll have heard this one. A girl is babysitting, always.
Always.
But
A girl is babysitting for a couple down our road. They just moved in and they got boxes everywhere. The house is big.
really big.
Loads of rooms, loads of boxes, and they have a lot of art, like...
Statues and paintings and all kinds.
When the girl got there...
The baby's asleep, so she says bye to the couple.
And is just watching TV downstairs.
But a couple of hours later, the baby starts crying, so she gets up and she takes it in her arms. And no matter what she does, it won't stop crying.
She's in the room with it.
Looking after it.
But it won't stop. The baby's room is massive too, with all these...
Boxes and toys around. And the statue.
Stands creating a huge shadow behind her.
And when it's crying, it's always looking at this one statue. Statue of a clown.
Turns to look at it.
Life-sized and bright.
The baby stares and cries.
So the girl takes the baby out of the room.
Takes her into another room and calls the parents. She says the baby won't stop crying.
And then they go through all the usuals. Fed her, changed her.
And she interrupts. Look, I think I know what the problem is. It's not any of those, it's the statue.
What statue?
The clown statue.
And silence. Until...
We don't have a clown statue.
And the girl turns to look
At the statue.
Young Maya slowly turns
And the statue
to look at the shadow behind her.
turns back. See, I love that. Because that's it, isn't it? That's what used to freak me out so much. That's the moment.
right there. That's the whole thing.
Just that second when you realise you're trapped in a house with a killer.
Or a burglar dressed as a clown.
That's the second. That's the worst for
me, anyway.
Whenever I have bad dreams or whatever,
They'd always end there.
in that second,
When it first clicks that it's all over.
that there's nothing left to do.
Then I wake up all sweaty and gross.
I heard that one through the wall.
Young Maya places the lamp next to her sleeping bag and sits on it. Older Maya stands.
She would have told it way better than me.
That was one she told when she was older. Less a grey man and woman when she was older, more just like scary stories.
Though the woman did come back one time when she was older.
When she was dating this guy, the woman came back one time. The guy, I remember, he was older than her.
A lot older.
Because she was still in school at the time.
Must have been...
Must have been, I don't know, some big set of exams or something.
Because it was when...
It's when things started, I don't know, to get... Well, it's when she was saying she wanted to leave.
Leave school.
Or she wasn't saying she wanted to leave, she just wasn't going. And she wasn't studying or anything, she was just out all kinds of late.
Every night.
And then she got a job in a bar, I think. And then it just got worse. And my parents would have a go at her, but nothing would change. But yeah, it was around then that she met this guy. Yeah.
Now, I think that's weird. I think he was so old. Must have been sometime in his 20s, maybe mid-20s. I guess back then that I just thought that's how things were. I was still just a kid.
She met this guy in this new bar. It was when all the bars started to open, like the one she ended up working in. One day, my sister and her friends, they all just go to like the same
2 shit pubs.
pubs that my dad would have friends at. And suddenly,
They go to bars.
back then I wouldn't have known the difference. Now, I get it, you know? Now there's so many bars.
Bars,
Bars.
bars everywhere.
So she met him there. She wasn't old enough to buy drinks for herself yet. I think she asked him to buy it for her. Well, they'd all do it.
Her and her friends.
Ask random guys. Sometimes really old guys. Well, usually really old guys. We did it too when we were her age. We just wear like low-cut tops
Having no boobs.
and just ask these old men. Usually, if you want to get the drink, you go for the creepiest guy in there. It's the same with off-licences, isn't it? You pick the one with the creepiest guy so that they're definitely going to sell you stuff. And sometimes they'll be like, are you going to give me a kiss for that drink?
And you're 13 or whatever and you don't think it's weird, so you give them a kiss on the cheek.
And they say, that's not a proper kiss.
And so you give them a kiss on the lips and they really go for it. And then you take your drinks for free.
Makes my skin crawl thinking about it now.
But this guy, he wasn't one of those guys. He was actually a hot guy that my sister was flirting with.
And the way she talked about him, he didn't sound creepy at all.
Now, of course.
Now, I think he's properly creepy. Fucking my teenage sister in his mid-20s.
That's so weird.
But I guess when you're a teenager, it just makes you feel really grown up, doesn't it?
Having someone older.
So back then he was just some good-looking guy who bought her a drink. Before long, they're talking, and then, I don't know. Well, I don't remember much about the beginning. Probably started the way anything does.
Flirting,
Touching.
texting.
I don't know. When they properly started, like, going out, she used to have all of her friends over and she'd tell them all about it. First, it'd be about where he'd taken her.
But they never went out properly. They never went out properly to bars at first. They just walked around and stuff.
Maybe he was weird about dating someone so young. They never went back to his place or anything either. her friends always talked about that, always said, where does he live? Why'd you never go back there? And she said that he had friends that he lived with. And she said that he told her that it was because he just wanted to spend time with her, that he didn't want to share her with all the other guys. And she said he told her that he wanted their time to be special.
Older Maya sits on the bed.
She said she thought it was because he was jealous.
She'd tell all her friends, she'd say...
He's jealous, he doesn't want me to fuck his friends.
And her friends would laugh and they'd be like, are you gonna fuck him?
And she'd say she'd seen them all the night they met, the night her and all of the others were in the bar. She'd seen the way they were looking at her.
And her friends would laugh and be like, oh, introduce us, come on, let's all go down there.
And she was like, wait.
Young Maya gets up, sprays deodorant across her body.
I'm working on it.
Tosses the spray down and goes back to sitting on the bed.
I think he didn't have her around because he was embarrassed. Not just because of her age, but because, you know, I never saw him or anything, but he was different to us, you know.
Older Maya lies stomach down on the bed.
But anyway, she'd spend so long going on about how they had sex. And she'd go, he touched me here, and here, and here.
And all the girls would just laugh and they'd say, where? That is too weird.
And she'd say, it's not weird, it's what men do. And she'd say men in this way that you just knew she meant men.
But the thing is, I never even knew where she was talking about because I couldn't see, so God knows where she meant.
She spent so long talking about how different he was from teenagers and how he got her, how he just got her, and the boys at school didn't, which is so...
So easy, isn't it, to think you're so grown up, to just think that older people just get you. He was just... whatever.
Older Maya stands, looks out of the window.
She got a job in this bar. She was too young and my parents were pissed. They begged her to quit because she really wasn't going to school. But she stayed. And he used to come and see her in there.
I used to get scared. I was still pretty young and I used to think of the woman.
That woman. I used to imagine my sister behind the bar and looking out the window, seeing the woman in the window and then turning round. And there she was, after all this time. But my sister didn't talk about that stuff anymore, that was just me. I used to try and think of ways to stop her going. And then I didn't need to because she quit. That was when things ended with the guy.
I heard her tell her friends why. She said, one night, he'd come to see her in the bar.
Young Maya stands.
And she said all night, there was this woman staring at her.
She didn't pay much attention.
But she could tell that the woman was staring.
She didn't mention it to her guy because he would have thought she was crazy.
And then, she said, it clicked. It was the woman.
Lights dim.
After all this time, that the woman had come for her, staring. And she said, when her guy went out for a second, she grabs her, the woman. She grabs my sister. She grabs her and goes, don't go fucking near him, okay? I know you fuck him. I know how he fucks you. Don't think I don't know that. Don't think he hasn't told me.
And she said back to the woman, he hasn't told you fuck all. Get the fuck away from me.
And the woman said to her, I know how you think. I know how girls like you think. I do. I can see it. And she said, what? And...
Lights brighten. Older Maya, eyes wide, disturbed by the memory. She looks around the room.
And...
as if sensing another presence in the storm.
And...
she looks lost. Confused.
And then she went home and...
She paces distractedly.
soon after she quit the bar.
Because then she goes on and says how she can't be having that. Oh, he's an arsehole that lets crazy women attack her in the bar that she works in, and a real man wouldn't do that, and that's what she needs, a real man. So she ended it with him, right there and then. And they said, her friends, they said, well done. They said that's definitely a good thing. He sounds like such a prick. You're too fucking good for him anyway. And then one of them said he was weird. I always thought he was weird. All the guys like him around here are so weird. And they all went, yeah.
Older Maya sits on the bed again.
You know what was nice? Is that her friends let her get away with it. That they just let her tell this stupid story about that woman that she told stories about as kids. They let her have this. They're always going on at her. Shut up, that's such shit, you talk such bullshit. But with this, they let her have it. Let her believe it. I always thought that was nice of them.
Young Maya also sits on her makeshift bed.
She did have a new job for a little while, just a shop round the corner. But she stopped going for shifts, not all of them at once. A couple of months, then maybe a couple of weeks, and then she probably just got fired.
She fought with Mum and Dad about it all the time. And then she didn't even put up a fight. They'd call her lazy, and she'd go, yeah, guess I am lazy.
I'd imagine her serving grey men in the shop. I'd imagine her talking and her giving him his change. I knew at this point that it was lead poisoning, but I'd still imagine it. Her grey breaths meeting in the air over the counter.
I never got involved in the fighting. I just shut up. I never said anything, ever.
I'd imagine her in her coffin room. I'd imagine her lying down, looking up at the ceiling and breathing and seeing her breath turn grey before her eyes. I'd imagine it all. The grey coming in her fingernails. And at some point, not an exact point, but at some point, there wasn't more fighting.
She was just there.
Like it'd always been that way.
And we didn't talk about it.
They both rise.
A couple of times after I moved out, Mum would come round and talk about it. She'd end up crying in my new flat, and I'd stand there and I felt awkward and I just didn't know what to say. And one time we did discuss it.
The only time we did discuss it,
I got home and she wasn't in her room.
I got home and she was in the kitchen, in the actual kitchen, and I was shocked. And
at first I tried to pretend that seeing her wasn't a big deal, and I just tried to act normally, but then
I saw that door. I saw the fucking door that I would always see her through, and
I just flipped.
I said, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? Here, you know Mum and Dad can't. They can't. What do you?
I just went on and it didn't stop. I was going off, and the thing is
about something that has been unsaid for so long, something that has never been a problem that you've never talked about before. It's that when it come out, when you actually say it, it's too big to explain, and no matter what you say, you can't get it right. It just doesn't make any sense, and so I just left the house and...
Darkness. Lights slowly rise in younger Maya as she puts on her leather jacket. The light has a warm yellow glow.
So this is a good one. I heard this recently, and
She flicks on the main wall light.
A girl breaks up with her boyfriend of 3 years, and she doesn't know what to do with herself, but she tries to, put herself back together. So she decides to go on a trip that they were going to take together, but by herself. A camping trip. They used to go camping a lot together, and she loved it. So she's freaking out a bit before she leaves, and she's getting her stuff sorted, and the camera breaks, and she really wanted to take pictures, but she buys a disposable camera, and that's okay. So off she sets. The first day goes well. She covers her ground in no time, and she sets herself up for an early night. She puts up the tent, and every night, before she goes to bed, she puts her stuff into this little bag at the bottom of her feet, tightly packed, because she needs space to sleep. In the morning, she takes her stuff out, and she just feels nothing's missing, but She just feels someone's gone through her stuff. And this happens every night. She packs her stuff away and she wakes up and feels it's wrong. But she finishes the trip and she goes home, and she managed. By herself, she managed. She gets her photos developed, and when she does, she finds some pictures that she didn't take. She finds pictures of her sleeping, one taken every night.
We see both versions of the rooms side by side.
I thought about how I could tell her this when I heard it. I heard it at work, and all day, all I could think about was how to tell her, exactly how to tell each bit of the story.
Older Maya is in darkness.
And I thought I should just stop by the house, just stop by, and I did. I got off the bus and I got in, and she was in a room, door closed, and I knocked and I said, "Hey, I've got a story for you." And I looked at the door and I knew she wouldn't answer, so I said, "Do you remember Grey Man? Do you? Do you remember Grey Man?" And there was no answer, and I said, "Do you remember that time you said you knew Grey Man? How one time when you saw him, how he tried to turn you and how you looked at him and you knew what had happened to him. Do you remember?" And she didn't say anything, and I said, "Do you remember that woman? Do you remember? Do you remember her? That woman who tried to..." The words sounded so stupid now that I had to say them, all these things sounded so stupid, and I just wanted to say, I just said sorry.
She turns towards the wall.
I just said sorry. I haven't been. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've always been, that I haven't been around. And then I told her all these stories that I'd heard, that I'd been saving up, and then I could hear her on the other side. And then I said, "Okay, so let's imagine Grey Man's here. Grey Man and the woman."
She slowly walks towards us.
Grey Man and the woman
The camera retreats.
come into this flat, and they...
She leaves the set and walks out of the frame as if entering a new world. Older Maya rises from the shadows in her room and switches on the lamps. She stands in the middle as she did at the start.
So a woman's just been shopping.
Darkness. Directed by Robyn Winfield-Smith. Written by Lulu Raczka. Produced by Rebekah Harvey. Younger Maya played by Cato Flynn. Older Maya is Kristin Hutchinson. Supported by Arts Council England, The Space and Lambeth Living Well Network Alliance. Director of Photography, Ben Marshall. Production Designer, Jason Kelvin. Editor, Anil Griffin. Sound by James Barrett. Music by Max Pappenheim. And casting by Annalie Powell. This audio description was by Emily Pollitt for VocalEyes.